welcome to Gallifrey's Most Wanted. I'm Ross Aiken. I'm Old Who.
My name is Melvin Pena. I represent the Lollipop Guild.
And I'm a recurring character.
And folks, we're here to talk about, I'm sorry, I'm not calling this Season 1 RTD. This is Season 14, Episode 1, Space Babies. Or, wait a minute, if you're Disney, it's Episode 2. Because they've got it set up on Disney.
Yeah, they've got Church of Ruby, right?
Yeah, which is fine. It's a good way. Fine, leave them like that. It's a good way to get the kids in. Let's get started. We're going to be talking about the first one, Space Babies. Let me give some pertinent data about it real quick. I'm not going to do a synopsis, but I do want to give credit who's done what. It's written by Russell T. Davies and directed by Julie Ann Robinson. So we should know that. Most of the season is Russell Davies, as Russell will do. So we'll start with Jeff. Jeff, your first take on this one. What did you think of it?
It's so weird being in the UK now. I watched it at midnight. Well, about 5 past midnight when it launched on iPlayer. And it was all right. It was a nice opener. It didn't quite chime with me in a way. It didn't leave me with any negative impressions. And I remember going out. I went to use the loo in between watching that and The Devil's Cord, and I thought, yeah, that was all right. It didn't commit any heinous offences. It didn't make me go, I hate this. I loved the babies, except all I could think of was that they're Daleks in disguise. And then once that got into my head, it kind of messed me up because the way they moved was very Dalek.
Yeah, well.
I was just thinking, oh my God, it's Daleks. It's cute Daleks. Anyway, and I was like, no, that was all right. I think I haven't had a chance to rewatch it, but it has grown on me. And I think the second episode helped with that because I could see where we're going and what it was meant to be was a very quick-paced beginner's guide to Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Borrowing from moments that Doctor Who does well and has done before. And it's there clearly and deliberately to introduce the DisneyPlus market that has not had easy access to Doctor Who across the world. That chance to go, right, I'm in now. I'm in now.
It's an invite. Invite to the party.
It's then up to them if they want to go back and start binging from the beginning of 2005 or from 1963, which is, I mean, it's perfect marketing, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
It is the perfect advert for the show. It's Doctor Who light. It's Doctor Who fun. It's Doctor Who quick tempo. It's blueprint Doctor Who, really.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Melvin?
I agree with Jeff across the board, and it's astonishing that you got all that off of one watch. I've watched it 3 times, and I've been delving a little deeper into it. But I agree across. I mean, again, like even having watched it 3 times and having the opportunity to make notes and consider it and think it through a little bit. Again, even just over the last couple of days, because I watched it as God intended at 7 p.m. in North Carolina.
Same here. Just after dinner. It's the perfect time for the show. Isn't it, Melvin? Isn't it like the perfect time for it to be on?
Praise
yes, it is. Yes. We've established that over the last 60 years.
No more fishing for it in places of ill repute, so I can watch it at like 5 in the afternoon on Sunday or on Saturdays when the UK is at the appropriate time. I live it. I love it. I'm all in. But yeah, no, sorry, a little bit of a distraction there. Again, I loved it. I think it is textbook Doctor Who. It is a great introductory lecture, as it were. It's super fun. It's super fast paced. You know, I was laughing in every scene. I was just laughing the entire episode. Like every time, again, Shooty has such joy. Ruby, Millie has such joy as well. Like that joy is infectious. Every time that Doctor Who would correct himself and say, like, babies, no, space babies, for some reason, I just thought that was the funniest thing, and I just could not stop laughing from the beginning to the end. And I loved that, again, if this inspires people to go back to 2005 or to 1963, or people who are longtime Doctor Who fans like ourselves, like, there is something here for literally everyone, which I think is really, again, it seems fluffy, but there's a lot going on here. So that's sort of my just like précis, and we'll get into all that stuff as we go along. But I was really impressed. I was like,
too. So
how quickly it got off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ross. Go ahead.
But I agree with both of y'all that it is an intro. It's a base under siege, but it's light and fun, and the kids are funny. There's some heavy stuff for the adults hidden in the background.
Yep.
Very pertinent political. Oh my God.
Yep.
Social commentary hidden for the adults, so they get a separate layer, which is classic Disney formula. You make it for the kids, but you hide stuff in it for mom and dad. So mom and dad can sit with it. And I do think it's supposed to be a starting off point, and I think Russell and Jan Tranter and Julie Gardner and Disney people are also realizing our fans age out. It's been almost 20 years since 2005. All those kids that we hooked on this show are now adults. The original show people are going to be collecting Social Security at some point soon. You know what I mean? So they need to get another group of little ones in. Because this show is for, Doctor Who is a family show, but it should be on some level, and it should be for kids. You know what I mean? It should be, you should be able to get 6, 7 years. How old were you when you saw your first one, Jeff?
3.5.
Maybe a little too young.
That's the perfect age for Space Babies, though.
Yeah,
3.5, and it was the Leisure Hive, which also had a baby in it. So
it did have a baby in it. But you see what I mean? I think this is definitely both, and we're gonna eventually talk about A Devil's Court in other episodes. I think we're gonna see that they have they've lightened it in a way. It's a little. I don't want to use frivolous in the bad term, but it's going to be more fantasy. That, and I like that aspect. We didn't see it much in the old show. It's much lighter. It's much more inviting to sit down with your 5 or 6 year old, I think, than I'm a Moffat fan, but there's some Moffat stuff. There's some Davies early stuff in the same that it may be not appropriate for a 6 or 7 year old because they were writing it for the fans.
Yeah, just very briefly, I saw, and I've tried to avoid everything, any sustained commentary on Twitter. I haven't listened to any podcasts or anything like that because I just wanted to sort of sit with it. But I did see someone tweet out like, the standard sort of thing that you see Doctor Who fans tweet out is like, which of these is the best sort of intro to Doctor Who as far as the first episode goes? And so I was just thinking about that. And I'm like, Rose, as great as it is, and it is a great intro to Doctor Who, it is very ponderous. Like, it is very heavy in a, like, when the turn of the earth, and I can feel it. Like, I mean, there is something that is breathtaking about that. But there is also something that is a little bit aged, a little bit older, that's a little bit less inviting for your 6 to 7 to 10 year olds, that this is not. And that's all I wanted to say is that there is that you're right, Ross. I think there is a more sort of family friendly sort of vibe to this.
Yeah, I think there's a reason for that, and I think that's because with the 2005 season, they were having to bring old Doctor Who fans back, and get them to get their kids to watch it. Doctor Who had been away, and that was the integral part. So there had to be a bit more of that. We're aiming slightly higher in the audience
and hope that they bring people with them, and
then we can bring it down when we've got the kids hooked. Now the kids are permanently hooked because Doctor Who hasn't ever really gone away again since. Sure, it's had extended periods between seasons and what have you, but it's never gone away. And so kids are constantly being got into it by older siblings and parents who have grown up with the show being on TV since the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, when their dead parents who watched the original run have got them into it. So we're starting to come full circle again now.
Yeah, I like
where
that.
It is, I think that's why they can be a bit lighter, and they can say, do you know what, we're now... And they do have to consider they are now on DisneyPlus, and they can't go for the edgier, darker stuff that older Doctor Who fans always seem to clamour for. Although it does look like we are going to get a lot of lore and a lot of Doctor Who mythos introduced.
But subtly. I think he did it a little...
But they can
afford
to be fun.
Yeah. And he can be a little more subtle with it.
Which is great.
Think,
like the other... I'm sorry, go ahead, Ross.
I just want to get this one point that it's, I think when they signed the Disney deal, they're also realizing that this is going to probably be, this could be the largest explosion in viewership ever, because it is on Disney everywhere except the UK. I mean, it is in any country that can get Disney can see it. So, and they don't have, the BBC's giving up on they're going to show it on TV, but they don't care about that. They're going to get all their money from all this outside stuff.
This may be the first time, and I know this is something that you hear it on every Doctor Who podcast. You see it on every Doctor Who blog or website when people are fussing about the audience for Doctor Who, is this idea of the casual viewer. And I think that this is maybe the first time that Doctor Who has ever been aimed at that, because Disney Plus, like you say, Ross, is so global. It has such a huge reach that the brand is such that people who have it will log on and say, oh, what's this? Like, that is the casual viewer. And this is perfect for that. This is perfect for that.
Yeah. That's like, and Davies creating the Whoniverse for iPlayer to show that we can only do this in this country now because of rights. Because of the copyrights and all the other legal crap that goes with having a show that's lasted 60-some years. But
I think it's also the reasoning behind the double drop as well, though. Dropping 2 episodes at once. So you can show we're fun, but we do this sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's to give you, this is it. This might be scary for the kids, but it's not, the Maestro, when we get to talk to that, how different is she from Ursula?
Yeah. I mean, she basically is a Disney villain.
Yeah. So, but let's talk more about Space Babies, because I've got other things. I'll delve into what I feel is the politics of it, because in this country women are losing body autonomy, and they can't get rid of the baby clones. It's illegal to get rid of the baby. So, but they'll leave and Millie and Ruby says it. You mean you left them? They wanted them, but now that they don't need them, they're not going to take care of them? I mean, that's not even subtle.
Yeah.
It's
very much rooted in the sort of pro-life discussions in both the U.S. especially and in the UK in a growing way, in terms of and refugees is another aspect of it that they bring that up explicitly.
Yeah.
And another thing that they don't bring up explicitly but is right there in front of you is child labor stuff. I don't know if you know this, Jeff, but it's becoming an increasing concern here in the U.S. that they are legislating ways to get children back into the workforce, that they've fined companies in Nebraska and Tennessee over the last 6-ish months for employing, anywhere from teens to children as young as 8 to clean slaughterhouse floors in midnight shifts.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
It is shocking. It is shocking. And that is here in this as well. Again, it's not necessarily on the surface, but, you've more or less raised babies to take care of themselves and run a spaceship. It's mind-bogglingly strange.
Using their waste as fuel to save money.
It's insane.
I caught all that, but it was still so fun, and that it was on the second viewing, and I went, I caught that, but you didn't make me go, it didn't ever feel heavy-handed. It's that thing, sneak in the message, sneak it in, because the babies are so freaking cute. Eric wants to, Eric gets a little crush on
Ruby.
On Ruby. On his little sword, man.
I love Poppy's Afro puffs. Poppy was my favorite, the captain.
Oh my god!
And I love that they all had, like, for some reason they had
Star Trek colored
uniforms. Yes,
they looked like the color coding was the same as Star Trek. Original Star Trek. The captain wore gold and the science people wore blue. Was there anybody in red?
And they did also mention Star Trek as well.
Yes.
Oh, we should go and visit them at some point.
Oh, I love that line. I was like, really? What? Please, 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 please do it. Do a crossover.
Which was lovely, and I thought, I saw that from a couple of different angles, which are like, that Star Trek is real in this universe, but also it could be we should go see them, as in let's go watch the show being filmed. Yes. But I know RTD. I saw a brief mention somewhere, a blurb of him talking specifically about that and how geeked he was, because he's become such a huge fan of things like Discovery and Strange New Worlds. He apparently has like the biggest crush on Anson Mount, which is, honestly,
I'm straight and I think he's hot.
Yeah, his hair is amazing.
Yeah,
I'm so jealous of his hair.
But
I don't know who that is.
He's
I don't watch any Trek at all.
Well, you've probably seen him. He's been in a bunch of other stuff too. So
yeah,
he's been
he
around
played
for
like what was it, the Black Beetle, or what's his name?
Black Bolt,
Inhuman?
yeah, on that terrible Marvel
Black
show.
Bolt.
But I don't. Jeff would have seen that. I didn't even see it, and I'm a Marvel fan because I watched the first 10 minutes and went, "Ooh, I smell this getting worse." But yeah, he's been in a couple shows. He was on a Western show called Hell on Wheels. He was the lead of that. But I like those references. I want to ask something, because I saw some clamor about, it was just basically bogey and fart jokes, and I thought bogey and fart jokes were huge in the UK.
No, not really.
Not really?
It's a rumor that toilet humor. We do toilet humor,
You
and
do.
we do
toilet
humor quite well.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that stems back to the 70s and stuff like Carry On at Your Convenience and stuff like that.
Okay.
It's I don't know if it's we prefer more edgy, dark, bleak humor.
Well, no, I get that too, because we would not have a fart joke in an American sitcom, really. Even today, it would be really weird.
My sort of observation on both of those things, and it goes back to what we were talking about towards the beginning, is like, if you're a long-term Doctor Who fan, this is one of the things where, and I believe we talked about this in the holiday specials, was that RTD has a sort of idea in mind of the trolls, that he is willing to actually like throw things in their face about, this is, I'm in control again and this is what's happening, is all the complaints you've heard for 20 years now about that first series of RTD Doctor Who was the farting aliens. Like, what's going on there? Everyone hates that, and he makes it the solution to the problem. Is like, we're gonna have a farting spaceship that's gonna get us where. How about that, Doctor Who fans? Like, trolling the Doctor Who audience. I think RTD, he doesn't give a crap. Like, he is here to let his freak flag shine. And what was the other one? The boogies. Like, another thing that everyone will go to town on is the Mark Gatiss episode, Sleep No More, and say, oh, how terrible is it? The monster is eye boogers. And he makes the monster made of boogers. Like, in episode 1, season 1, we're off to the races with farting aliens and eye boogers.
And you have to save the booger monster, because it's a person too. It's a baby too. It's a baby booger.
So again, he's like,
I thought it was funny
about Doctor Who. I'm gonna put them right back into the show.
I thought they were funny because they weren't that the bogey part for a minute. I was like, going, are you really going to tell a booger joke? Oh no, you're leaning into the booger joke. It's a booger plot device, and I love Millie Gibson's reaction while the doctor's excited to discover that everything in the room is covered in bogeys. That she's like, bogeys.
She's like, this is literally the worst thing that's ever happened in my life.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, well, welcome to your first trip in the TARDIS. It can only go up, because that's the worst thing.
Well, it's like the space whale vomit, isn't it? In Beast Below, it's that same.
That's still one of my favorite lines. She goes, I'm covered in sick. But yeah, I all of that, it all adds up to really just what I've taken so far from even the special. The 314th Doctor specials were a little darker, you know, but they were leaning more and more into the fanciful. You know, it's less centered in. Now Davies would cross the line, but he was more centered in true traditional sci-fi. Moffat would play with fables, like the Doctor is the fable. But now it's. I like this thing that I've always loved the idea of the toy maker, the Eternals. Enlightenment's one of my favorites. Yeah. I loved Can They Hear Me? Can You Hear Me? Mm-hmm. Which is, I like twofold, because one, it's about mental health awareness, and two, the villains are these people who are, oh no. And the Doctor, you know, it's like, we're before you. We've been here for, you know, we're eternal. And scary. So bringing in the toy maker and giving us another being like that and have that kind of the through line for the season, I'm really digging that. I like that these things are a little broader.
This is verging into stuff I want to talk about with the next episode.
Well, let's just wrap up with this, and we can just move to the Devil's Court, unless you have any other big points to talk about this.
I think the Space Babies is fine.
I think it's fun. I had a good time. It's what you're supposed to do. If I was 7 years old seeing this Doctor Who for the first time, I would have had a blast and go, can I watch the next one?
And therein is your point.
Yep, and I have just a couple more things about Space Babies before we let it go. Like, one of the things that I loved, again, thinking about how sort of light and fluffy this episode is the way that, and I can see where people might think, like, this is too light and fluffy for Doctor Who, or there's no substance here. But the thing is, like, it's a very tightly and well-written plot. Like, everything that comes into the episode pays off later in the episode. You even have that seemingly meaningless gag at the very beginning where she steps on a butterfly and turns into a sort of weird bird creature. But then...
I love that. I love that. She had a whole new name and tries to kill him. That's great.
Yes, but then at the end, when they walk back into the TARDIS, he's like, it's right that moment, he walks in and he's like, okay, I forgot to set the butterfly compensation effect. But you also get that thing at the very end where, you know, she does change history by stepping on a butterfly, even though he dismisses it as something totally ludicrous. But at the end, he's like, okay, you know, we're going to go on this trip, but one place we cannot go, one place we will not go is to the day that you were delivered to the church on Ruby Road. Like, he, you know, it's in his mind now. And this is like y'all were talking about how, or Jeff was saying that, you know, we're going to get lore, but we're planting it. We're doing the lore from square one here. So we're telling you, because of this, we cannot do this. Because of this, we cannot do this. And, you know, we see that happen in the next episode as well, which we'll get to. But, like, I just wanted to put that out there that, again, that this is a well-written plot, that this is a new approach to Doctor Who. It's one that we haven't seen before necessarily. It's what I thought we were going to get, honestly, when Chibnall came on board, because he had that Broadchurch serialized drama experience, that we're going to get, you know, sort of discrete adventures, but there's also an ongoing story. And I think that is important to realize as well, that there is, you know, that something that happens in Ruby Road affects, you know, that they keep doing these flashbacks now. Even in episode 1, you see flashbacks from Ruby Road, so that we know that this is part of an ongoing narrative. So there's a sense in which we have to accept that, you know, that these may be discrete adventures, but we're also looking for the ongoing threads. Yeah. And one other thing about Space Babies that I really love was the nanny language filter.
Oh my goodness!
Which is funny because it didn't work the first time when she first talks to the Doctor and Ruby. She says, "For God's sakes, get to Portal 357," and later she says it again, "For God's sakes," and it says like, invocation of the deity. But I just thought that was hilarious.
No, I like that too. The
Doctor needs to stop destroying Ruby's mum's flat.
Yeah.
The amount she must have spent on plastering now in the last few months.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous.
I'm glad we got to see
I've never seen a more wantonly destructive Doctor in my life.
He just can't. Have you noticed he cannot park? Have you noticed this Doctor can't park because the TARDIS lands and slides every time he lands?
Yeah.
I have theories. I don't think we're in our universe at all. And I don't think we've been in our universe since, I don't know, we could go back to Mavity. We could go back to the confrontation with the toy maker. I think maybe it's to do with Gallifrey not being around anymore. I think there are a lot of things that indicate that we are not in the traditional Doctor Who universe anymore.
Or the universe.
I think we've skipped somewhere.
Well, I thought that through the end of Jodie's tenure, they were destroying the universe, and they did not fix it. And I'm assuming when he says everybody died, every Time Lord died but me throughout all of time and space, was the event in
the Flux?
No.
Timeless Children.
Timeless Children. Yeah, where he kills where the Master kills all of them and resurrects them. Yeah. He killed them all.
He was talking about the Time War. But he was also talking about the Time War as well.
Is it a combination really of the... Yeah, so it's kind of... Where is it coming from? Yeah, I'm
because that was the thing for me.
And who is Mrs. Flood? Because the actress is appearing everywhere.
And she's in every episode.
Where was she in Space Baby?
She was one of the people from the original crew.
Scream, that's it. She was one of the...
Her name was... the character's name was Gina Scalzi, she said her name was.
Okay. And she
has appeared in every episode. We'll
talk about her when we talk the Last Chord, who she is in that one. Who is Mrs. Flood?
But yeah,
other than being the wife of the guitarist of Queen, which I thought was very cool when I found that out. Oh my God, that's cool.
No, we're talking about different people though. We're talking about different people.
Isn't that the woman who lives next door to her?
It is. That's that person. But the person we're talking about is the person who sort of appears in the background. She was like the maid for Sir Isaac Newton.
Oh, I thought that was the same. I thought that was it. That's same actress. Oh, it's a different actress. Oh, okay.
Yep. As far as I know,
so they got
I think her name is Susan Twist. I don't think that's the same person.
I'd have to hold on. But
because Anita Dobson plays.
That's right. It's a different. So it is totally a different person.
Yeah, they are totally different person. Yep. Sorry, a little confused. Hold on a second.
No, that's fine. But yeah, no, I agree with Jeff. Like,
Susan
I hadn't
Twist.
I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, I think there may be a sort of problem with the universe, and that's something that, or not necessarily a problem, but like that reality is somehow different now, and that allows you, and it really allows you in a reboot sort of series to make up the rule you go along, to say, what you thought before, like you're on board here, like this is where you get on board because things are now different and we're going to show you how they're different.
It's like the fourth wall breaks are like something out of the Truman Show, or it could be the Land of Fiction. It all rings like
there's something underlying.
We're watching a fiction. It's to do with creation. And
well, no, see, I love that because it lives, because there's the Master in the Land of Fiction. There are all these other characters that are like the toy maker. That these things that embody things, the embodiment of games and fair play. The toy maker, I like that. The toy maker set the rules of play. And he meant for the entire universe. That this is the way this works. And I think
the other thing,
that may play into what Jeff is saying.
Well, the other thing I think we need to think about in this context before we let go of Space Babies is thinking about Ruby herself. Because there's the scene where the doctor's talking to her, and snow starts to manifest. Like there's something that, again, it's not really emphasized in Space Babies as a sort of core thing, or it's not lampshaded or anything like that. But there's something off also about Ruby specifically that we're starting to notice in Space Babies. Because again, like, just talking about the night she was found, snow starts to appear in the spaceship. And, I can't remember if it's the end of this episode or the end of Devil's Cord, where
it's the end of this. I think it's the end. It's happened in both episodes so far.
Okay, where he scans her, and I think that may be the end of Devil's Cord.
That's it. My wife was like, "What does the screen say?" I said, "I'm going to wait for someone to freeze frame it, blow it up, because I can't see it."
That's exactly what I felt.
But yeah, even running her DNA through the TARDIS somehow, even though they're not present there at the end of the Devil's Cord, starts to make snow start to appear.
I love that.
So there's some way in which, and again, this is another thing where Doctor Who fans, since time immemorial, or at least since the Stephen Moffat era, have decried and derided Moffat's companions for being the most important girl in the universe, or like whatever it happens to be. And again, there's something here about this particular companion from episode 1 where things are sort of, and this is another thing that I noticed in this episode that I didn't want to let go of. I'm glad I had notes. is there's an Eighth Doctor line in the TV movie where he says, and it's a really awkward syntactical sentence, but he says humans always seeing patterns in things that aren't there, which again, it's this weird sentence, but we get what he means. And this is something that the Doctor and Ruby talk about a lot in these first 2 episodes, is he's like, I'm not saying that everything's connected, but there are connections here. Which is, again, I think, sorry, I've had too much and not enough coffee. I think that there is a theme that's being established here as well, that what are the connections? What kinds of connections are we drawing? What things are connected? What things aren't? That there is something thematically linked here with Ruby and the adventures that they're going on.
Yeah, and I like it. I think at watching Modern Who from 2000 up to Chibnall, because he didn't really do it with the companions, but Davies and Moffat would have this thing, oh, you're important because of, and I even got tired of it. But I like the way it's being done here. I think it's a little more subtle. It's also a little more obvious at the beginning that there's something going on with this woman in the hood. The Doctor ends up having to put the baby back. The Doctor is already he's already stalking Ruby in the Child at Ruby Road. You know, he knows something's wrong. He doesn't know it's her per se, but there's something going on with Luck and Chance and the goblins, and he starts to put 2 and 2 and 3 together to get whatever. That there's something special about that event at that church when Ruby was left. Why is Ruby special? And I just think it's playing better. I think a lot of that does do with there's so much lightness around it. You know, it's not heavy. Like, you know, Moffat got really heavy. You're the impossible girl. You're the girl that waited. You're this, you're that. It's really heavy. This is, something's with Ruby, but we're on an adventure. Me and Ruby are on an adventure, and it's fun, and it's silly. They're babies, and baby Daleks with, you know, and bogey monsters.
And I think that may be effect of, and this is something else I've heard a lot of people complaining about, which is insane, but the fact that this was done and planned out so far in advance. Like, it was really sort of unsettling to me and shocking in a, like, shocked me, eaten back to life sort of way. There's a little reference there for Jeff. Where in the Unleashed episodes, they're talking about, this was filmed in March of 2023. Forget that this was over a year ago. So, I mean, anyone who is thinking that RTD, like, that this isn't somehow thought through and planned out and executed according to a plan is out of their minds, because of course, like, they've had over a year, like maybe 2 years since he started writing these scripts to like put this all together. And really briefly, I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
I'm 100% convinced that Chris Chibnall, Stephen Moffat, they've all talked, they've all shared ideas, and they're all leading and pointing in, if not exactly the same direction, the same general direction for where they think the show can and should go onwards. And I think the advantage of something like the DisneyPlus deal gives them the opportunity to actually put that into practice. Whereas maybe with the BBC solely being an in-house production, it would have been more difficult to convince those in power to do where they want to go with this, because it's clear that they've all, because he's clearly used elements from The Timeless Child.
He loves it. He has no problem.
He does,
He's like, I hope that goes on forever. He keeps mentioning it. I'm a founder.
He leans into it with the Doctor saying, you know,
I think
was
part of
abandoned,
that is him giving
the adopted.
It's not a coincidence that Ruby is also an adopted child. But she has a family, and the Doctor doesn't.
I like that.
So,
I think you're spot on with that, Jeff. I think that is. I think part of it is Disney for like streaming, and in America for these, because a lot of shows are streaming now. They're not for networks. Network shows are still on a tight turnaround. Well, but when you're streaming, they give you more time to do it because you have to deliver everything at once. They're not broadcasting a season until it's done. You're giving them 8, 9, 10, 11 episodes. You're giving them everything. You're done. You're on hiatus before it even airs. Or in American television, you're about only 2 months ahead. And I'm assuming in England with shows that are on not like randomly like Doctor Who was, I have a couple years off, they're doing that. You know, we've got to get this done. We have 3 months from when we lock the script to when it airs. This is not this way. They are already filming season 2 and planning season 3, and we're only 2 episodes into season 1.
Yeah. Doctor Who always historically had a very tight turnaround between
tighter
completion
than
of
American
filming
and
you know, and release, and that's the way TV was done, and that's not what TV is anymore.
It isn't.
It's not. It's a completely different animal. It's a completely different form of media now.
Yeah.
It's vast catalogues and libraries that are immediately available to all who want to either pay for it or go looking for it. You know, it's not even like they dropped all the Fallout in one lump sum, and that's one of the best things that's been on TV.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's on my list. I gotta watch it.
Have you ever played any of the games?
No, I don't play video games, so it's not.
I've played Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4.
How does it hold up?
Fallout 76. It is a continuation of everything that I've ever played, and it's done with such exacting detail that it is mind-blowing. It feels like you are in one of the games.
I love it. I think it is the world building. The world building is amazing, and it makes me. I don't want to play the game, but I want to how they take on YouTube. Someone will play the game and then have like a 7-hour movie, and it's the entire thing. I did that for The Last of Us. Yeah. But it's but I think that's right. I prefer Disney. What they do is sometimes they'll dump 2 at a time or 3 at a time. But they want you to come back week after week because while you're waiting, you're going, ooh, that's new. I'll watch that later. Like there were Stories of the Empire. I didn't even know that was out.
There is an argument for letting something breathe in the week between episodes and letting the audience build up their own anticipation. When I was growing up watching Doctor Who, you would spend the week ignoring anything your teachers were saying to you, just trying to rack your brains at how the Doctor and whatever companions were going to get out of whatever horrible cliffhanger. And it wasn't until later life that you realised, right, it's going to be in the most banal way possible 9 times out of 10. But that didn't matter because that built up the excitement and it built up the anticipation. And by the time you were hovering with your finger over the record button on your VHS player, you were shaking with anticipation and the fear that you were going to miss something. And that's what spreading Doctor Who out over time does. I kind of wish they'd done it with Fallout, but it also meant I could watch it in 2 days.
And I sort of feel
my
like
wife are watching it in a couple episodes at a time. So,
and I sort of feel like we haven't sort of lost in the and this is germane to what we're talking about because I feel like we haven't sort of lost. And I know that was one of the fears is that there would be like some essential element of particular Britishness that would be lost for Disney for Doctor Who to become a global brand. Like that's still like the parochial aspects of it are the terrestrial airtime, the a specific lore that is specific to 60 years of Doctor Who. I feel like we've ejected the stuff that kept it parochial, that kept it bound, and that the Disney Plus stuff, the global audience, the strategy for release, like all these things are, they filming it a year in advance. Like all these things are playing to very specific, crowd building, audience building goals, and I feel like that we're going to. And again, there's an eye towards a more global point, which is not only audience building but also inclusivity. I mean, you get that. You get references to Star Trek. The other reference that I don't know if y'all caught. But Ruby is like, she has that same companion moment that everyone has. Is like, oh, everyone here speaks English. And the Doctor's like, no, here's what the language actually looks like. It's a sort of form of Cantonese, which I'm like, oh my God, Firefly. Yes. Yeah.
That was very Firefly. That's what
incredible.
I thought. I was waiting for him to just start cussing in Chinese like on Firefly.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, even that, like, again, it's really subtle, but, we're saying that in the future, and again, this was the point in Firefly, too, which is like, that the global population is so heavily Asian that, of course, at some point, Asian language is going to start to meld into a sort of common tongue. But like that again, it's not lampshaded. They don't hang a light on it, but it's there as well. That that there is a bigger world, that we're part of a larger community.
Yeah, yeah, I loved it. I think it felt it to me watching it. It felt Disney, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Disney tells stories very well, and it tells stories for a huge, broad audience. It is not just little kids, because I live in the Star Wars pit section sometimes. I live in the Marvel section sometimes. Sometimes, heck, I went back and watched Robin Hood a couple weeks ago because I love Robin Hood. Bug's Life is sitting in my wait list because I love Bug's Life. Look, I am a butterfly. One of my favorite movies. But it still felt like Doctor Who. It just felt like Doctor Who with Disney money.
I think a lot of people's more negative reaction to it is because it's stuff that if you're a long-time Doctor Who fan, you kind of know, and you're kind of waiting for them to get to something new.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe I've seen a few meh reactions to Space Babies, and I think that's possibly wise, because it wasn't really pushing immense boundaries that was coming, but it wasn't happening in this episode, because this episode is doing exactly what we've been saying for the last sort of half an hour or so, is it's there to go, we've got a load of new eyes on us now, guys. We've got to get them in. We've got to get them in, and we've got to catch them and make them want to see the second episode. Because that's the key, is making them want to go to the next one.
And so putting them both out together was good, too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To kind of go, here, we're giving you 2 different types of episodes. Figure it out. In 7 days, we'll give you more. Here, first one's free. And also,
TV audiences have been trained now that you give a show 4 episodes. 4 episodes to really hook you, and if it hasn't hooked you by the 4th episode, you're gonna dip out. Maybe the 3rd.
Yeah.
But people are more willing to give the show a bit more time, because we're so used to donating so much of our time to watching media now in the streaming world. Like I said, I watched Fallout in 2 days. You're watching it a couple of episodes at a shot.
Everybody's doing it different. And it depends on the show.
Everyone's doing it different, but everyone is also giving more time than just watching traditionally a 25-minute episode, a 50-minute episode, and then stopping and going and watching something else. It's much easier to hit that play next episode button.
Yep. And I think that may be the canniest decision of the entire first season, is having that 3rd episode is going to be the Stephen Moffat one, and I think that is going to really.
It's going to be very different than everything we've seen so far.
I think it's absolutely going to shock people.
He's going to go, I'm going to make Stephen do the scary one, the really scary one.
Did anyone else think of the Genesis of the Daleks?
Oh, yes, that's exactly what Dave used to say. There's going to be a little bit of old Who in every episode. Yep. And when we get to the Devil's Cord, there is one that bingo. Yep. I was like, I've seen this scene before. I don't care. I like that they're repeating tropes. I'm right. You know what I mean? That this is it. We have the same rules, like you were saying earlier. They're
repeating tropes, but they're repeating tropes with very deliberate reason.
Specific little moments, man. They're really minutia, and I love it. That's for us.
It's not just copying what's gone before. This is done with thought. This is done with thought in mind. We just don't know what the thought is yet, because we haven't got to the end
it's all going to be tied up in this big bow.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Is it what Jeff said? Is this a new universe? It's a new universe. So, and he's even teased at it by showing us what this universe's Davros looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That Davros isn't, and he's doing it, one, for a social reason. He wants to stop. He's kind of going, what he said about the sonic screwdriver looking like a gun. Never looked like that to me, but I understand where he's going for. I'm seeing things that younger viewers, this is how they're interpreting this stuff. And I'm going to self-correct.
Because he's had a chance to watch that generation that he first introduced to Doctor Who grow up with it. And he's got to learn what their expectations of what the show is that he brought back. So he's now got all of that experience under his belt as well, and all of that learned knowledge, and all, because they know what we're talking about on Twitter. They know what the feud of the day, or the spat of the day, or the toys out the pram of the day is going to be about Doctor Who, because there's something new every single day, and a lot of it comes from those very passionate younger fans for a lot of different reasons. This
bugs me. This is cringe, as my goddaughter says. This is cringe. And I think he has to adapt to that, because there's something about nerd fandom, and I'm going to use both my sci-fi nerd fandom and my comic nerd fandom, is older viewers, older fans, they don't like change in a lot of ways. They don't. And I get it. I mean, I do. I'm reading a lot of old comics from my youth now because I found comfort in them. But I don't want modern comics to look like that. I don't care. I may not buy modern comics. I'm almost 60 years old. Same with Who fans, that he has got to kind of shape the show around the mores and the aesthetic of people born since the new show came back.
Yep.
I mean, who he wants to grab are people who were born after Rose.
Yep.
Maybe 10 years after Rose.
Yep.
And that means you have to write to their sensibilities.
That's one of the larger questions for me is, and again, we thought about in the 50th anniversary year, that this is, setting the tone for the next 50 years. But the end point of that episode was Matt Smith saying, I'm headed home the long way around, like going back to Gallifrey. But that's like re-entrenching yourself in lore that's already been built for 50 years. Like so that's one of the things that I was always thinking about, is like thinking about the reboot of Doctor Who in 2005 sort of felt like, here's Doctor Who for people who like the X-Files and stuff like that, or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And then when Moffat came on, here's a version of Doctor Who for people who like Sherlock or Lost or shows like that have a sort of ongoing mystery. And so, like, what is this reboot of? Are we going to just reboot Doctor Who for people who like certain kinds of media that have been established? No, I think exactly what you two guys are saying is dead on the money, that we're not thinking about what practiced media consumers are looking at. We're thinking about how do we hook a new generation? So like I feel like RTD is stepping into entirely new territory here. We're not trying to think of, what are we trying to rehash to get new people on board? We're thinking about what can we do that's new to get new people on board.
Yeah.
I think ultimately the misconception is from a more cynical portion of the fan base, is that these people who only want Doctor Who to continue are trying to destroy it somehow. And all of them have received that criticism from some portion of the fan base or another over time. And I've been guilty of it myself when I was younger and more naive and more passionate, maybe. My passion for Doctor Who has never gone away, but I was more gobby. You know what I mean?
I think we all were that.
I've grown up as well. You know?
I was very
but
gatekeeper.
We all do it. It's happened since Pat Troughton took over from Hartnell. Who's this clown? Where's my doctor gone?
Yeah.
It happens because we are passionate and because we care about the show. And the guys that are running it are no different to us. All they care about is the sustained viability of Doctor Who as a going concern.
One to add on to that, and then we can move on, is that each one of the modern producers is one of us in every way, shape, or form. Davies, he never made Big Finish go away because he was a consumer of it. He was a consumer of the novels, the toys. Moffat's a lifelong fan. Chibnall's a lifelong fan. And they've had their pissy gatekeeper moments when they were kids. Hell,
of course,
Chibnall's got his shit on tape.
Moffat famously left a Big Finish meeting when they told him that he wasn't going to write for the McGann Doctor.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah, why would I do it? We're all like that. We're all like that. But it's silly. Overall, I want to just say, I think, and I think we all kind of agree that this is a great opener. This is a great welcome mat.
Yes.
To
cheers
everybody.
To Space Babies.
Yes, cheers, cheers, cheers. Bring them back. Let's have a sequel. Space Babies versus the Daleks. Throw nappies at them.
With K9 as a special guest.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And instead of Nanny, they could have Pop Pop. My team at work, because I'm going to be 6 years old, started calling me Pop Pop. And I'm going to fire every one of them. But John Mason can come on and be that. He can be their granddad. So
it was so lovely talking about Space Babies with y'all.
Yeah, it was.
I really had a good time.
So, folks, you're going to hear. I'm going to edit this later, and this is going to drop the day it drops, and then 3 days later, a conversation we're going to have in the next 30 seconds we'll drop our episode on the Devil's Cord. So, hey, thanks, folks. Any recommendations and other things we'll put at the end of that episode. But till then, we look forward to seeing you somewhere in time or space.